Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Report Podcast, episode 196. I'm Benjamin Yoder, here today to talk to you about video games. I got a lot of games to talk about, but honestly, a lot of these I don't really know how much I have to say, and I actually don't know if anybody really has much they want to hear about these games either. So I'll probably try to keep a lot of it short. But just to kind of continue on the train that we've been having the last week or two. I'm still playing Solomon Program, and probably, it's still more of the same for the most part, and I streamed it last week too, so if you go watch that stream, you can see the final release. It looks very similar to the 2.0 demo that came out, essentially. But this is the first version of the game that had microtransactions implemented into it, so that was something that I interacted with a little bit, and I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but when I do microtransactions in a gacha game, usually I'm paying that money after the fact. So I finished my time with the game, I feel happy with it, and I want to give the developers some money for the time I spent on it, basically. So usually I'll give them anywhere between $10 to $20, depending on how much money I felt my time was worth. And a lot of times I just would not even use that money. I would just purchase it and then just leave it there, and because I was already done with the game, I didn't really have any need to do anything. So this is the first time I really started pulling while I was actively playing, paying to pull while I was actually playing, and then B, having a real want out of that gacha. There's a particular characters set I wanted. If you listen to the podcast before, you wouldn't be surprised. The characters I want are the Otoko doll characters. So I got Prid, I got Lucico, and then I still need Ira right now, which is the Valentine's event kind of character who's she's kind of like a vampire, but she's got like chocolate kind of themed clothing and things like that. So I still need to get Ira. So I went ahead and dumped $10 into it, and I was surprised. I don't know if I ever realized just how much a gacha pull costs, because it was $3 to pull, and in my mind, I was this seems really expensive. But then I thought about it, I was I actually don't know how much gacha pulls typically cost. I don't play these games very often. I haven't played a mobile game since I played Venus Vacation almost 3 years ago, if not longer at this point. Venus Vacation not being a mobile game, but it's a gacha style game on PC that's free to play, right? So then I asked around a little bit, and I also posted a question on Twitter about it too. It was is this right? And apparently it is. That is just the cost of the gacha pulls in the game. So that was kind of I don't know. It's a weird feeling, because when I think about what you're paying for $3, any one character you're getting out of a gacha pull, I feel it's not going to be worth even that $3, let alone however much amount of money you invest into it, right? And then there's also the pool of characters in Solomon Program right now is pretty shallow. I think, like I said earlier last week, I think it's 30 characters I noticed in there. And so I have a few monsters that I have not gotten yet. The Otoko doll character technically being a monster, I guess, in this game. Unit, I think is what they're called. And it's just the value of the pool, if you get a character that's a duplicate, is just being able to merge them with other characters and raise their rarity and raise their stats. So yeah, just when you think about what you're literally getting for that $3 transaction, it just seems like a really expensive prospect. But at the same time, I have to think about the fact that you're playing this game for free, and you're not paying for it up front. So to some extent, you got to think about that built-in cost of hey, I'm basically paying for this game. And when I think about that, then it's well, I can understand the value a bit more. You're kind of paying for what you want for the game, right? It's pretty much a pay however much you're willing to give them, essentially, for the game. So I think I'm a little got a little bit a sticker price shock from that $3 gacha pull. But then when I actually sat down and thought about it, I was yeah, that's probably not wrong, in terms of amount, right? That's probably about right once you really start to think about it. So I think I'll probably at least give them another $10. So even $10 last week, so and $20 in total for Solomon Program, I think is a reasonable price. The biggest problem right now is just being, I don't know what my end goal is with Solomon Program. There's not really anything going on. You can get into these daily boss battles, and that will also be a way that you can pull. It's basically a free pull every day, except for you have to earn it through beating a boss. And then whatever boss you beat is the pull you get. So I could theoretically get Ira from that that thing. And you can also pay in-game currency to fight another boss if you want to, so you can get multiple of those characters a day. And that amount that you pay like doubles up every time, basically. So if you pay 1,000 gold the first time to do a second boss fight, you pay 2,000 gold the next time, things like that. So yeah, I just don't really know what my end goal with that game is. So it's one of those things that I'm gonna probably give it another. I hope I give it another week or so. So that would give me another 14 hours into the game, 7 to 14 hours. But yeah, I just don't know what I'm going to do to or what I'm working towards at this point, which I guess is kind of like the point of a live game to some extent. But I feel like a live game typically has some kind of progression, then you hit the end of that progression, right? This is just like, I can't even tell what that progression is. So anyways, it's a fun game though. I am enjoying it. And if it gets localized, that'd be nice. But at the same time, I've also played so much Solomon Program between the beta and the Japanese release at this point. I'm like, well, I really invest that much money in yet another release of Solomon Program. I basically started that game over 3 times now at this point. So I feel like I kind of got everything I wanted out of that original demo as well. It's one of the I guess the bad things about, offering up a beta demo kind of thing is like, if you get a player that's just like, oh yeah, I got everything I need out of the demo, then they are not going to come back. So yeah. I did want to talk a little bit about Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury as well on this podcast. This is also a game I streamed last week, so I'm going to be kind of repeating some thoughts from that. But I think the real thing I want to focus on is something that I wasn't really expecting out of the game, but when I started playing the game, it kind of made me feel like the Bowser's Fury is kind of missing something. So if you don't know, the Super Mario 3D World re-release has a bonus add-on mode in there called Bowser's Fury, which essentially takes that Super Mario 3D World game, which is like an isometric kind of multiplayer platforming game, and kind of retinkers it to be a 3D exploration Mario game. It actually works really well. Like if you showed me that game was like, hey, this is a new Mario game, I think I would believe you if I didn't know what it was. So because it's built off that 3D World engine, there's some weird stuff about how the game controls, like you have to hold down a button to run rather than just, moving the analog stick forward like you would in like a Mario Odyssey or something like that. So there's some weird things here and there about it. But what I think one thing that I wasn't really expecting to really want to interact with was the Bowser Jr. part. So basically this game has Mario teaming up with Bowser Jr. to try to stop like a rampaging, giant version of Bowser. I don't know what you would call it. It's maybe like a corrupted version of Bowser or something like that. And so with that rampaging Bowser, the Bowser Jr. is trying to essentially stop him as well from doing that, because I assume Bowser has no control over his body at this point, basically. And so Bowser Jr. is like, okay, I'll help you. And you can choose when you start the game how much he'll help you. So you can tell him none. So he basically doesn't do anything. I think he just kind of floats around and is just there. You can tell him a little bit. So occasionally he'll go around and kill enemies, and he'll go and grab stuff from time to time. And then also you can do a lot. I didn't turn on a lot at all because I just felt like that might be like a little too much. So I left a lot off. But so I set it on a little, and he goes around and he does things, and it's kind of a fun little thing, but most of the time when I was playing, I didn't notice what he was doing at all, so it didn't seem to matter that much, to be honest with you. But what stood out to me was the fact that you do have the ability to control Bowser Jr. So you can use the gyro on the Joy-Con to use a pointer on screen, and you can go around and like click enemies, tell him to go attack things, tell him to go grab things like that. And once I saw how that was implemented, I really wanted that game to kind of use that as a real mechanic. So I was like sitting there trying to kind of figure out how I could pair, Bowser Jr. with Mario, to solve, I don't know if puzzles is the right word, but platforming challenges and things like that. Where does it make sense to use Bowser Jr. versus use Mario? And I think, unfortunately, what ends up being is that despite Bowser Jr. being such this prominent, I don't want to say prominent, but he is a physical being in that world, in the story of Mario Bowser's Fury, and he is kind of a key character in that, and he is literally your partner character technically. It feels like what Bowser Jr. really is just an assist mode, and that using that assist mode often just feels like it's you kind of giving up on actually properly getting a shine in this game. Like there's these shines. They're not Mario Sunshine Shines, but they might as well be. They're just, the stars of this version of Mario. And so like sometimes you'll just point Bowser Jr. to go grab like something, and he just kind of flies up there on his own, picks up a star, and he's like, all right, man, we got that star. And like like you didn't do anything other than just point at it with your little Joy-Con controller. And sometimes he won't actually go and grab it. So I don't know what makes it decide whether he's able to grab something or not. I think maybe what it might have been, and I had to go back and look. I think he can't pick up shines, but he might be able to pick up like these cat tokens, which if you collect 5 of those, they become a shine as well. I don't know for sure that's the case. It's just my theory after the fact. So yeah, I was a little disappointed that wasn't more of a core element of the game. It was more or less just like, the Cappy mode or the ability in Mario Galaxy for somebody to use the Wii Remote pointer to throw star bits around as the other player plays as Mario, right? But otherwise, though, it seems like it's a really great 3D Mario game. When it comes to structure, it's kind of interesting because it almost feels like if they took one of the Mario Odyssey worlds in the game and just really expanded it out, but added a lot of variety of environments within it. So it's kind of like this small open world you're kind of navigating around. You can also run, I forget, it's like Neffy or something like that. The weird like dolphin, not dolphin, like, I don't know, kind of like Loch Ness Monster looking thing, honestly, more than anything. That you can ride that thing around the area and stuff. So, and there's this mechanic where Bowser turns into that big thing I talked about earlier, and he'll attack you while you're platforming around. I don't know how I feel about the mechanic. I really like, there's like these Bowser cubes around the area, and you can use Bowser's like flame attacks to break those cubes, and usually there's like a shine or something inside of them. But I don't know, because you can only break them when Bowser is rampaging, essentially, and he'll rampage for a set period of time before changing back, unless you go and fight him, essentially. It feels like sometimes I suddenly get in this panic where it's like, oh, where's the closest Bowser cube? I'm going to stop everything I'm doing to go look for these Bowser cubes, because once he's gone, I can't actually do anything with these cubes. And so I kind of felt like at times it was a bit distracting, and it just felt like I wasn't, I wasn't able to focus on what I wanted to focus on because of those cubes. Like, I kind of wish there's a way to open those cubes without having to have Bowser blow his laser at it, or a way for you to trigger the Bowser encounters so you can more easily get through those cubes whenever you find them. Because right now at this point, there's definitely ones I abandoned just because I happened to miss getting the cubes in time, and it was like, well, I can sit here and wait for Bowser to rampage again, or I can go do other things first, right? So I thought that was a little disappointing, but otherwise it seems perfectly fine. It feels very much in the vein of Mario Odyssey in a lot of ways, in terms of how its world structure is. So if you're a fan of Mario Odyssey, it definitely seems worth it. It's one of those things that's weird though, where if you played Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U, is Bowser's Fury worth $60? No, absolutely not. But is it worth like $20? Sure, but Nintendo's not going to sell it to you for $20 right now, at least right now. Same thing with like Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected. Like, yeah, it's probably worth like $20, but if like full $60 price if you're not going to play the original Xenoblade Chronicles, probably not. Xenoblade Chronicles Torn of the Golden Country, they actually sold that as a separate product, which was kind of nice, although it was $40. When I would say it's probably similar in scale to, well, it was actually a bit more expansive than Future Connected, Torn of the Golden Country. So, I don't know, maybe the $40 was worth it. I think it was $30 digitally, $40 physical, which, physical cart tax is basically a common thing these days, so I don't want to think too much of it. And then I also tried, speaking of Xenoblade Chronicles, I've also tried a bit of Pyra and Mythra and Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I almost said, my brain went Melee Brawl, ? But Ultimate. And I said this before, I'm not a huge fan of Pyra and Mythra, so I don't really care that much about them themselves being in the game, but being able to have a fighter that can switch between like a fast-paced sword wielder versus a slower, heavy hitting one is a character I really like. I pretty much, everybody complains about all the sword boys and girls in Smash Brothers, and I understand. I'm not gonna blame you for not liking that. But I like my sword boys and girls. It's like the only characters I play in Smash Brothers characters. Like, do you have a sword? Yes or no? Okay. If not, Donkey Kong is the one exception. for some reason I like to play as Donkey Kong from time to time. but yeah, mostly I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna play Cloud, I'm gonna play Link, go play that Marth, gonna play that Ike, all that stuff. So yeah. I've also been playing some co-op stuff, and again, I know these are all kind of mainstreamish games that you can hear about elsewhere. So apologies if you want to hear about some more niche stuff at the moment, but that's just not what I've been playing recently, for better and for worse. Like I can't remember if I said this already, but like I'm behind on video projects. If you haven't noticed, I am behind on getting casual reviews done, I'm behind on getting actual reviews done, behind on doing my research videos. I've been just kind of burned out recently, and being able to play these things that are just like, I don't need to write about this because nobody cares what I have to say about Mario probably, but you're going to get it on the podcast because that's what I'm here to do, is just talk. Like I don't need to cover this stuff nearly as much. Maybe Bowser's Fury I'll say something, but otherwise the rest of that stuff probably, you're probably not getting anything from me on that. But I went ahead and finished up Overcooked 2, so we got all the DLC done for that. I already talked a lot about Overcooked 2 last week. I think I kind of explained everything I want to say about that. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts on Overcooked 2, go to last week's podcast. We played a bit more Sanctum, nothing really new there. So we went ahead and started up trying to play Apex. One of my other friends wanted to try Apex. I think literally the incentive came out of them just like being into VTubers who were playing Apex. I played a bit of Apex a while ago. I think the podcast was going on, so I probably talked about it on the podcast at some point. I know the podcast was going on when I was playing Apex a while ago, years ago, whenever it launched, basically. And I never really got too into it. Not really anything to do with the game itself, just the fact that I was not really able to invest the time I needed into it. And I wasn't really getting better at it at the same time too. I got to like rank 20, but I had maybe like 8 kills or something like that. So I went ahead and started playing a little bit of Apex with them, and I've been having a good time, and I started up queuing up on my own as well, which I probably shouldn't. That's a waste of time. But like I said earlier, it's okay. I can't make a video about Apex, so it like saves me the burden of having to make a video if I play any other video game. But I've been playing a little bit of that, and that's been fun. Yeah, I think I was mentioning when we were trying to determine a stream game, I was like, I want to play a shooter. Like I really want to play shooters, what I want to do. But I don't want to necessarily play through a single player shooter right now, just because then if I finish it, I have to write a review about it. Or I don't have to, but it's very likely that will happen. So I think me playing Apex right now is a side effect of me wanting to play a shooter but not actually want to complete a shooter right now. But I've been having a good time, and like what I've been doing recently, I've just been like every once in a while I'll queue up for 1 or 2 games and then just kind of pop out after that. The biggest problem I had with Apex, because I used to play a lot of PUBG, I played over 300 hours of Players Unknown Battleground. Apex has a long time to kill, so basically there's a lot of shields and armors you can get in that game that even when it comes to like PUBG, didn't really have that much extensive armor. There was armor in the game, you could get higher level armor, but the time to kill in PUBG was very short. A handful of shots usually was enough to down somebody. In Apex, usually you have to really load into somebody to tear through their shields and then tear through their health after that. There's also a ton of resources for restoring your health and shield, so you really have to be like put pressure on them and things like that. But yeah, so I've just been playing that, and I don't really have a lot to say about it other than it's a good one of those battle royale games. It's definitely got probably, I don't know, I think it's got some of the more appealing character designs out of other battle royale games that have kind of gone down the like, we're gonna make these defined hero kind of characters, or even like something like Fortnite that's a bit more cartoony. Like I don't really care that much about how those look. I think Apex looks solid overall. Some of the character designs I'm not super into, but I think it's fine for the most part, right? I just play Gibraltar all the time. That's just the only guy I want to play. So I probably should have other people I can play just in case somebody else starts playing Gibraltar. You can only queue with one unit type per map, so you have to choose different units for each ones. Weird couple PC issues with Apex specifically, and also Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. Like, so in Apex, and this is like You know, PC gaming is great and it's also really cool, but there's like these little issues like this that are easy to solve for the most part, that but are kind of unappealing when you're just trying to play a PC game. Apparently, playing Apex Legends in borderless windows seems to cause problems in certain cases. I don't know if it has something to do with just like the strength of your PC, or if it has, depending on the type of hardware you have or what. But playing that game in borderless windows causes it to hitch a bunch, which was kind of weird. And so once you actually play it in full screen, it plays smoothly then. So I don't really know. I was able to turn I turned everything to low and it was still hitching with borderless full screen. And once I turned it to regular full screen on PC, then it played perfectly fine. And then also I was playing Dissidia NT Final Fantasy with a friend who wanted to try out the free to play stuff just to see what that was like. And we didn't want to actually commit to it at the time, so we just booted the game up with mouse and keyboard on PC. You don't want to play that game with mouse and keyboard, but that's what we did. And the game was just like lagging horribly. Not really lagging, but like stuttering horribly during gameplay. We were like, what in the world's going on? Same thing, set everything to low, everything's just stuttering, the main screen's just stuttering all the time. Apparently the solve for that is plug a controller in, and once you plug that controller in, then the game runs fine. It's really weird stuff like that. PC stuff is weird. I know everyone's like, hey, PC, it's easy now. And definitely it is easier than it was like years and years and years ago, right? You're not really struggling too much with driver updates and things like that anymore, I feel like, or at least not to the extent that I feel like old PCs, you kind of struggle with that stuff. But it is still just like sometimes not the most clean experience to get up and running. Final Fantasy NT or Dissidia NT, I kind of expect to some degree, because I'm going to guess that PC version is probably not a priority of Square Enix. I could be wrong, but I don't think they really invested the time into that after launch support for the PC release. Where something like Apex is so popular and big, the borderless windows option seems weird. But again, I don't know, maybe something I specifically was doing, but that was what was recommended when I looked into it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is just how I'm going to play this game, is normal full screen now. So yeah. In terms of news this week, we have another basically online E3 keynote kind of thing this week, or whatever you want to call it, press event, direct, whatever you want to call it. Promotional video featuring multiple video games, not just a single one. And I'm probably going to kind of skip through these fairly quickly, because I'm kind of tired of doing these 3 weeks in a row, because we've had multiple events back to back to back. And I'm like, oh, geez, please. It's like we're not even like in that May-June time frame. So I'm kind of surprised that we're getting a bunch of this stuff in March. I mean, not that I'm going to complain that much about releases and stuff, just it makes the podcast feel a little samey, I feel like. But anyway, so the one that happened this week was New Game Plus Expo. I was a really big fan of the New Game Plus Expo last year. They had a lot of really interesting games that I was interested in. One of those games that was announced in that expo was Gunvolt 3, which showed up again here. Not really anything that different in terms of what they showed off this time. I think the release date was given this time, or not release date, but release window is 2022, so it's not coming out this year. It's going to be next year. But really the biggest thing I noticed in that footage was that Gunvolt's dash in the game kind of feels a lot more like Copen to some degree. Like basically it seems like it works in two ways. One is you can kind of phase through characters, and when you phase through them, I think it marks them, which if you don't know how Gunvolt works, basically you as the protagonist, use the protagonist, I don't know why I use that wording, but Gunvolt basically has this gun that he shoots things and that tags them, and that doesn't do any damage, or it does very little damage, and then his main skill is be able to shock them once he's tagged them. And so the more times you tag an enemy, the more damage you do. So it seems like in this case, basically like phasing through an enemy will essentially tag them. And then also they showed him like ramming an enemy very Copen style, which if Copen in the previous game basically like had these little jet boots he'd fly around with, and he'd slam into enemies, bounce off them, and then he'd use his gun at that point to do damage, or he also had special skills and things like that. So I'm curious if they're trying to take a lot of or some of the things that made Copen, his unique character, and implement them in Gunvolt. It probably makes a lot more sense to focus on Gunvolt and the other new character rather than try to cram Copen in there. I could see Copen being like a nice like bonus mode. If they're running the same engine, just throw it in and be like, hey, whatever, you want to be Copen, you can do that after you finish the game, right? That would be kind of neat, but I don't want him to be a focus of the game, honestly. So I kind of don't really want Gunvolt to be a focus of the game, but at least they're doing some changes to him as a character to make him more distinct. I'm really just focused on the new, I forget her name, but the new lady with the sword. That's what I really want to play in Gunvolt 3. So yeah. There's also the new Pocky and Rocky game called Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. I thought this was a remake, or at least visually it looked much like a remake, but when I looked at the description, it said it was a new game, so I will trust the description. Nothing really going on there outside of just being more Pocky and Rocky. If you don't know what that is, basically it's like a top-down almost shooter kind of thing where you're the shrine maiden in a tanuki and you go and you throw cards at all these enemies, and you have like this little spirit wand thing you can wave at people to smack them around and stuff. So I never played through the entire game as a kid. I just played the whatever one was on Super Nintendo. It might have been the original one. I only played that one, and then there's a couple that came out after that, and then like a kind of spin-off title called like I think Sayuki and the something Sayuki Winter something. It's on Steam. You can actually buy it now on Steam, PS4, and I think the Switch as well. I should play that sometime, but I'm hoping that the new one, the new Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, will have some kind of online multiplayer. I feel like the Pocky and Rocky games are definitely like co-op games, so I don't really know if I want to play that single player personally, but we'll see. The only other thing at next Game Expo I want to talk about, there was definitely more stuff, but just nothing really stood out to me as something I want to talk about. And this I probably shouldn't be talking about, but Pups and Purr Animal Hospital. You know, the only thing I want to say about Pups and Purr Animal Hospital, it's probably the same thing I have to say about that one princess kind of minigame collection thing, is like, I'm glad that stuff's coming on the Switch. I want to see more of that kind of stuff on the platform, because it is like, I don't know. I personally have a soft spot for a lot of those like kids games and things like that end up on the platform. You know, obviously there's shovelware and things like that can end up on the platform, which is like more junk stuff. But this stuff seems a bit more genuine. And also, you know, it's got a cute aesthetic. I say that, but it's really like it's made by like a Japanese developer. So like I'm like, oh, it's like a cutesy anime kind of look versus like a like when I think of the Imagine series, it's like the Imagine series is probably visually fine. It's just not my personal preference, right? Unless we're talking about the actual Imagine games that got localized from Japan, then it's like, oh, that's what I want to play. I have like 3 or 4 Imagine games over there. But I'm glad this kind of stuff still can come out on the platform and it isn't just like completely like isolated to mobile devices and things like that. I don't think I'll play Pups and Purr Animal Hospital, but glad they're trying to bring it over. The trailer was all in Japanese. I think the logo was in Japanese as well. So it looks very much like, hey, just throw this trailer together real quick, guys. like we don't got time to localize anything. Just put it together and put it out there. Outside of New Game Expo, there was the new Fantasian trailer, which is from Mistwalker. So if you don't know Mistwalker, they're basically the old Final Fantasy director, Hironobu Sakaguchi, who worked on most of Final Fantasies up to, I think, 9. He might have worked on some of the ones after that too. I can't remember, but I know he worked up to 9 at least. And he also worked on, you know, Lost Odyssey. The one I know him most for is the Last Story. And so the Fantasia is a Apple Arcade exclusive mobile RPG. So I don't know what the reach of Apple Arcade is, if that's a platform that you want to be on as a JRPG. I think they said it was going to be like a 20 to 40 hour game, so you know, not necessarily a short game, but it's got a nice look to it. I wish the trailer showed more of the environments, because if you've seen the environments for that game, they're dioramas that they made in real life, kind of took pictures of and kind of made them into a real world. So it's a very unique look to the game, but the trailers they showed is definitely like very focused on characters and things like that. I think it's specifically a story trailer. So you don't really get a great look at the environments, but you do get to look at the character models and things like that, some of the voice acting, and it looks pretty solid. I would definitely consider playing it at some point, but being on Apple Arcade, you know, I don't have an iOS device at this point, or at least anything beyond an iPhone 4 that's just like sitting in my closet somewhere, and I'm gonna guess it'll probably eventually come to Android to some extent, but that's not really, you know, like I said last week, I don't really want to play games on my mobile devices very much. Just not really, doesn't really fit into my lifestyle at the moment, at least. Maybe someday we can get like a mobile or a phone with a video out, and then we can do some stuff with that. But at this point, not really interested in that. So we'll see. It's apparently coming soon, though. They didn't give a date, but the Apple Arcade page just says coming soon. So does that mean sometime in the next couple weeks? Does that mean sometime this year? I don't really know. That Laid Back Camp VR game came out. I'm kind of curious about checking this one out potentially. You can play it outside of VR, so it's actually on a lot of platforms. I think it's on PS4, Switch, PC, and then I think they list out the individual storefronts for the VR headsets as well. But you can play it without the headset and just basically do little like activities. It's less of a game and more of a quote VR experience or something like that, I guess you could say. The Switch version does use the gyro controls, though. I don't know what it uses it for. But Laid Back Camp, that series always seemed like it had like a nice kind of atmosphere and tone around it. I tried watching the anime once, and I didn't really get into it. It just wasn't really what I wanted to do at the time. Maybe it's good. But I think, me being the dumb old me, I think I'm just like, hey, I'd play this in anime form. It is $21 though, which is kind of expensive for what is probably like a 30-minute experience. But I don't know. Maybe we'll check it out on stream at some point. That'd be like a fun little thing to just kind of sit through for a little bit. And there's also a Bloomberg report about a new Switch release. I think this has been rumored off and on, but basically they're like, hey, we're releasing updated hardware, supposedly launching this year. We'll see if it happens. But basically it's going to have an OLED screen with a 7-inch OLED screen on it, which I'm not a big portable person when it comes to gaming, as you might expect from my mobile quote just a moment ago. But I think it's good to give a more options for that system. I'm definitely interested in it in terms of just running games better. It can, according to the report, it can do 4K as well, but I'm not really in a position where my capture setup can do 4K at this time, so that's less important to me. But Switch games kind of don't run great a lot of the time. When I was playing that Mario Bowser's Fury stuff, I definitely noticed times where the resolution would just drop in a very like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 kind of way, and it would just look kind of muddy. Other times it looks great. So I definitely would be open to maybe getting a replacement Switch. Maybe like I would say for about $300, maybe I'd be willing to do an upgrade. But I think anything over $300, I'd probably just start looking at saving up for like a next gen console, PS5 or Xbox Series X. Probably PS5. I would love to be able to make a choice. I think what I like what Xbox is doing is just the literal fact of just Japanese games are going to PlayStation 5. So that's where I'm going to end up going, right? Because that's my personal preference. There are a lot of Japanese developers and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Whew. Anyways, that was a lot of talking about video games. Hopefully we can get back to something a bit more standard next week. I don't know. I kind of feel like this podcast has been a little too straightforward recently with some of the news and some of the games I've been playing. Just like, yeah, you know what Overcooked is. You probably know what Overcooked is. You probably watched the next Game Expo. I guess next Game Expo is a little bit more of my niche or whatever. So I don't know. Are my thoughts helpful? Who can say? I don't know. Podcast. I'm here for it. To give it to you. Words. Anyways, speaking of words, if you want to say words at me, guess what? I opened a Discord channel for the website. So if you want to come put some words in a chat that is technically connected with onecontrollerport.com, you can do that. It's pretty small at the moment, and I would expect, I'm not a big time streamer, obviously. I got a handful of people who show up on streams and about 400 and something subscribers that I think largely do not listen to the podcast, which is fine. I don't blame them. Yeah, if you want to come, chat in there, the intention of that Discord was to kind of give a place to better coordinate some streaming stuff, especially if it's going to involve other people. So I don't know if that will come true or not, but that was kind of part of the intention. So it will probably be pretty quiet, probably pretty dead, but I'm happy to talk to you at the end there if you wanna chat in there, say something about something. I don't know. We've been talking a lot about Sonic games in there for some reason. So Sonic and Danganronpa. I will never play a Danganronpa game, but you can tell me about Danganronpa all you want. That's a lie. I might play Ultra Despair Girls because that's a shooter, right? But anyways, that's the thing. In terms of upcoming content, I'm going to go ahead and put the casual reviews on hold right now. I did go ahead and basically sit down and start focusing on the Disaster Day of Crisis voice acting comparison video that kind of takes a little time to analyze what I think the goal of the Disaster Day of Crisis script changes were and kind of the evidence I have of what those goals were and what was changed to kind of achieve them. So hopefully that's interesting to you guys. I'm a big Disaster Day of Crisis fan. fan, so I personally find it interesting, and it's a topic that I haven't really seen covered on YouTube much, outside of people stating the fact that it's something that happened, that they did re-record a lot of the lines in the game. Not really saying why or what the substance of that is, other than just the fact that like the military group got their name changed, right? So hopefully this gives a little bit more, sheds a little bit more light on what those changes were and why they may have been made. So the script is entirely done for that. I just got to do the reading for it tonight, hopefully, and then hopefully get started on the editing. I think I have a pretty good idea in my head of what I want that to look like. So I think it will actually be pretty quick to put together, but I'm not going to make any promises. Obviously I would have loved to have this ready by early March, but I just kind of burned myself out and needed to relax. I could sit here and be really upset at myself, which, secretly in my brain, I am very upset at myself, but at the same time, this is not my job. So I should relax. I'll get it out. My goal is to just release it on the first Tuesday that I can at this point. So I'm not going to sit there and wait for April, probably. Just get it done, put it out, move on. Because I just want to move on right now. I need to get out of this slump I'm in, and thankfully I think I did good work last night on that script. So yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website. Upcoming stream stuff is basically going to be some more Bowser's Fury. We're going to play through that. I don't know how much time that's going to take. I don't know if we're going to have time to play other stuff on stream tomorrow or Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific time. So we'll see. I will probably have something planned just in case we finish really early, although there are still other things I can do in Bowser's Fury after we beat the game 2 as well. So maybe we'll do that too. We'll see though. Otherwise though, that's it. I hope you have a great week. Bye.